Welcome to the Brand Doctor Podcast, strategies that help entrepreneurs build reputable and profitable brands. Here's your host, Henry Kaminski Jr.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Henry Kaminski here with another Brand Doctor Podcast episode for you guys. Today, I have an amazing guest. Again, found this amazing individual on LinkedIn. I tell you guys, LinkedIn is the spot. You have to check it out. If you're not on LinkedIn, you're missing out, especially if you're a business-to-business business. Mm-hmm. And so I was on LinkedIn, and I happened to bump into this profile, and I was very, very impressed by this individual. I found her to be a perfect fit for this podcast because she is an image consultant, along with a lot of other stuff. So I don't want to pigeonhole her with that one little sort of title. But without further ado, let's introduce Bella Verita from the speakerstylist.com. What's going on, Bella?
Hello. So great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for taking the time today. You're on the left coast. I'm on the right coast. And so I know how timing could be a little funky sometimes, but I appreciate you coming on the show. And so let's get into it. So I told you offline, I want to start by introducing you or having you tell our audience, like, where did this passion for fashion come from? And how did this speakerstylist.com brand become?
Well, perfect. So I'll say it's actually started out with just my passion for helping people. So I remember at 8 years old writing in my journal. And I came from a divorced family. Both my parents had been married and divorced a lot. And so my family was always broken up. And I remember writing in my journal at 8 years old thinking, if I could just teach people to love themselves, like there wouldn't be so much divorce. And specifically my mom, if I could just teach her, if she just loved herself, like, because my mom tended to choose like alcoholic husbands and then you get divorced and it came like, she just loved herself. She wouldn't choose those men and I would have a family. So that's actually where it started. And then it wasn't until my real estate career where the show, the show What Not to Wear, I don't know if you remember when that show was out.
Yes.
So my stepdaughter and I used to watch the show all the time. And I was in my real estate career. I was at the top of my game. I was the number one business broker in the state of Nevada, but it wasn't fulfilling my heart. Like I didn't feel like I was really making a difference. And I started on a personal development journey. And I remember sitting in law and ethics class going like, if I could do anything in the world, what would it be? And I was like, I could be Stacey London and Clinton Kelly. Like I can do that. And that's really where it began. And that 3 hours, I came up with my first company name. I focused on, for the first 8 years, I focused on women and teaching them to love themselves. My company was style psychology at the time. And I had programs that really teach women to just love themselves. And, the transformations that would happen were phenomenal. And that's kind of where, and my dad always says, so going back to when I was a kid, I would spend my time, because as I said, my dad was also in the field of drugs and alcoholic. So I'd spend my days at the mall. Like just to get away. And I love to watch people's shopping habits. And there is no joy like a man or a woman or even a child that just finds that perfect outfit. Oh, and especially like during prom season, watching the girls just like try on the different dresses. And just, I always noticed that a new outfit really brought people a lot of joy and happiness, even if it was only for a moment. Like when you put on, and I'm sure you've experienced yourself, like when you put on something brand new, like you kind of start walking a little different.
Listen, Bella, I'm a shoe guy and my wife makes fun of me all the time. She's like, you got better shoes than I do. And so that's why every once in a while she'll get the red bottom when I go to get my, because I gotta, but absolutely when I'm throwing when I put those shoes on, whatever they are, it makes me feel established. Gives me this feeling of listen, not everyone can afford this shoe, right? And so it brings in this confidence. I'm not going to lie. Let's just call it what it is, right? And so I get what you're saying. Even if you get a shirt that fits you nice or a blouse that fits you nice, I'm hearing you loud and clear, and I'm resonating. I'm getting goosebumps a little bit because it's like, I know what you say, and it's so true.
Yeah. And it's something, there's a lot of, and this is what I discovered, there's a lot of personal development, especially in the arena of the business. But when it comes to style, and this is, where I started working image from the inside out, whereas a lot of personal development is from the inside out. And when I started working from the outside in, because it's all about image and what you see when you look in the mirror. So if you get dressed and you have a suit on that's, a little too big, it doesn't feel comfortable. And I work with a lot of speakers now, and it's amazing when they step to the stage and they know things don't fit quite right. It's amazing how much space in the energy field and in the brain that takes up. And just thinking about do I look right? Am I the right shape? But when you put on that outfit that you look great in, your confidence goes through the roof, which means your sales go through the roof, which means people want to work with you. All those things go through the roof. And so that's when I started to discover, let's work from the outside in. Let's look good and then make everything else.
That's interesting. And it's funny you say that, because nothing drives me absolutely insane more than seeing a guy with a suit and the freaking sleeves are too long. It drives me up the wall. The immediate reaction I get is you're sloppy. And if you cannot wear a jacket that fits you correctly and you look sloppy, what does that say about your work?
Yep.
I mean, it is what it is. But so I try not to be judgmental because it's so judgmental.
Yeah.
But like you say on your website, you have 3 seconds to make the right decision or the right impression. What are you going to do with those 3 seconds? And it's funny, I was watching, I don't know if you watched this yet on Netflix, but it's hilarious. My wife thinks it's boring and stupid, but I think it's absolutely hilarious. So Jerry Seinfeld has this new show. It's called Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee.
Okay, no, I haven't heard of this.
You have to, if you get Netflix, you have to watch it. It's absolutely insane. It's so funny. So he goes around and he interviews these top-notch comedians, right? He's got Chris Rock. I mean, they're not just comedians. He had Barack Obama on. So anyway, he's got this comedian on, Sebastian Maniscalco, and I don't know if you know him yet, but he's growing and his popularity is going through the roof. Funny as hell. And he was like, I don't understand how lackadaisical the world got. He says, I go into a steakhouse and I'm sitting next to somebody, a nice steakhouse, right? Expensive. And I'm sitting next to somebody with flip-flops on. He says, I can't even eat my steak anymore because I got to look at somebody's hoof. And I was dying. And he was like, listen, when you see the world sees you. And I thought that was such a powerful statement that he said. And I was just like, exactly. So in my head, I'm thinking, I'm doing my research on you and we're getting ready for the podcast. I'm saying to myself, what's a good title for this episode? And I think I came up with it, but image is everything.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I don't care what anybody says. You judge a book by its cover.
You do. Yeah, I remember doing a talk on that one time. It's really just, it's our human nature to be judgmental. And so you can work with it or you can work against it. Because a lot of people are like, oh, it shouldn't matter what I look like. And if people are going to judge me, whatever. And that's working against it, right? Versus it's human nature. We're not going to change that, our judgment, that we judge. That's just so we can work with it. If and if you're an entrepreneur and you're in business, it's not like you're, I'm not going to advertise, right? It shouldn't matter if I advertise or not. You wouldn't say that because it matters if you advertise. So if you know that it matters if you advertise and you're a brand guy and it's if your advertising looks like crap, it's not going to work. And and especially in this day and age, is the company owner is the brand. The employees are the brand. When I go into companies and work, because I worked with a lot of the casinos in Las Vegas.
I saw that.
And that's the first thing that I, tell like the CEOs is like, the people that work for you are your brand. I've worked with a lot of companies that have sales forces, and they are the brand. They are the ones that go face to face with the client. And so I remember when I was working with Cintas, and they provide more uniforms to companies than any other company. And there's also, what the guys wear in Colorado is much different than what the salespeople wear in New York City. So you also got to know your demographic. Like, if the guys in Colorado walk in a 3-piece suit, like people are going to laugh at them. Mm-hmm. But, if they have like, maybe really nice jeans on and like, cowboy boots and really nice like dress shirts, like it says something. And so it's really like just knowing your target audience and being dressed, to meet them where they are.
So let me ask you a question. All right, so we get where your brand came from, which I think it's the cutest story in the world. And I think it's so genuine. And that's what I tell people, like, you got to start businesses for the right reasons. So for those that are listening and watching, she didn't pull this out of a hat. Bella didn't say, oh, this is trending right now, so I'm going to go start a business about it. This came from like a deep passion, and like she wasn't afraid to talk about, came from a broken family, and she really wanted to see people happy, particularly her mom. And so this is where this passion and this love and this joy of wanting to help people love themselves comes from. So now you find that and you start to build this brand out. And so talk to me, how long have you been in business?
11 years.
11 years. Okay. So you're a year older than me. So it's always, and we all know as entrepreneurs, it's not a straight line to the top. So
not by any stretch of the imagination.
So talk to me about one or two hiccups that you have experienced along your entrepreneurial journey that were lessons. I don't like to call them mistakes. I call them lessons, and how you overcame them.
So, so my first one was when I first started out, I was just doing dressing. Like people would hire me, we'd go to the mall and I would teach them how to dress. And I remember my biggest client at the time, she had hired me to do this full makeover. She was going to reopen her real estate broker firm. And she was very clear, like she wanted this professional look, tidy, put together, with a little bit of edge and a little bit of sass, but, very suit driven, that kind of thing. It's very clear on what she wanted. And so we went shopping. We spent the entire day shopping. At the time, it was the client that had spent the most money on my services and had ever spent the most money shopping.
Okay.
And so I call her 3 days later to ask her, how's she enjoying things, whatever. And she's like, I hated it all. I took it all back. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
What happened? And she was like, I just want you to know, it was nothing that you did. You gave me exactly what I wanted. But what I discovered is it wasn't what I actually wanted. I am not a suit person. I don't want to wear suits. I don't feel comfortable in suits. When I put it on, it doesn't feel like me. And I just didn't like any of it. So I took it back. And I was just like, what do I do with this? And I remember at the time I was also studying to be a religious science practitioner, which is like a spiritual practitioner just for my own, just to have on my own. And I remember I was in my final, doing my final week, getting ready to prepare for all my tests and written exams and oral exams. And I was in the library studying, and I was like, I want to develop a 10-step program for women that starts from the inside. That's really about loving who they are, and then goes through a process so they can actually discover what their style is. Because a lot of people, what they do is they'll flip through a magazine and go, oh, that's what I like. That's what I should be, because everybody else in real estate, this is what they're doing and this is what I should be. And when we put on that cloak, that outfit that's not really who we are, then it's like a kind of an imposter syndrome that you don't really have confidence. And so from that is how I created my program, The Style Within. I was literally walking down, I was taking a break from studying, I was literally walking down an aisle, and this book literally fell into the aisle, and it ended up being my framework for My Style Within, which ended up being one of the biggest programs that I'd ever done, which is like the style from the inside out, and really helping people discover like what their authentic style is. And she ended up going through the program, and she was more of a romantic, relaxed style. And so we were able to give her a whole new style that was, still put together, that was still her, but that wasn't, suits and that whole deal.
And it's funny because it sounds to me that, because I go through this a lot in my business. So for example, somebody will come to me and be like, I need a new website, I need a new logo, right? And I'm like, are you sure? Yeah, positive. All right, well, let's do a little bit of diagnosis here. Let's go a little bit deeper. So what are you trying to do? And they tell me. What do you think is holding you back? Like, what are you getting stuck with? Why do you think that's the case? And then I go through those questions, and we come to find out that the website and the logo isn't going to get them the results that they're looking for. They need to go deeper into understanding who their target audience is and really understanding who they are. And then we develop a strategy. So it sounds to me, work on the outside and then in sort of was asked backwards, and it backfired at that time because she was like, no. So it sounds to me that like we didn't get to the core. And when you went back around and you started at the core or at the foundation and built out, that's when everything changed. So very, very similar experiences here. I've gone through that, the same thing with design. Like we would design these big projects and they'd be like, I don't like it. And well, why? Well, I don't know. I'll know it when I see it. And that you just, as a designer back in the day, you just wanted to jump off a cliff.
Yeah, out the window. Yeah.
Yeah. So and then I got some coaching. I found a mentor, and the mentor said, you're going at it all backwards. You really have to do the discovery. You got to do the diagnosis. And that's where the brand doctor came from. So the way I work with my clients, it's I diagnose, I prescribe, I apply, and then I reapply. So that's how I work. And now my clients are getting amazing results because we're starting from the right place.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. I'm glad that you figured that out, because how many business owners want to just jump to try to help, but yet not do the homework that's needed to really get to the bottom. So great point. Yeah. Any other sort of hiccups? Like that to me was a pretty big hiccup, but like anything that almost like took you out?
Well, so on a personal note, I was about 6 years into my company. I think it was at the time. Yeah. And when I first started my company, I literally had started my first 3 years. I had doubled my revenue every single year.
Awesome.
And I was doing really well. I was at the top of my game. And then I met someone and I got into a relationship. And then I was together with this person for a total of 2 years. And it ended up being a very emotionally and verbally abusive relationship. By the time and it was like, if I wasn't at home by 6 o'clock, I was a terrible wife.
Oh my God.
You know as much as I do, you got to be networking. Like I was always at events. I was always networking. And, when you stop all of that stuff, your business goes to, so when I left my marriage, I literally had $300 in my account. I had lost all of my business because, I wasn't allowed, if you will, to work on weekends. And so like I had just lost all my revenue, and I really wanted my marriage to work. So I was, doing all the things. And now I understand abuse. I didn't understand it at the time. And so literally had left with literally $300 in my account, and just thinking, and after you've been through something like that, I'm a terrible business person. I'm not born to be an entrepreneur. Like I need to go get a job, and I'm a terrible employee, by the way. Terrible employee.
Me too.
Yeah. And so, and I just remember sitting at my friend's house, like, crying on her couch, like how am I going to rebuild after this? Like, how am I going to be credible? Because when you kind of hit the top of your game where you've doubled your revenue, for 3 years, you've worked with every major casino, every casino CEO is talking to every other casino about, you got to have this woman come in to having 0 clients, $300 into the account, and, going, okay, I can throw in the towel and be done now, or I can get back out there, start going to networking meetings, start calling people. And that's what I did. I started, because I didn't know I've always been an entrepreneur. The only job I had was when I was first 21, was a cocktail waitress at the Hard Rock in Vegas. Like, just because I wanted to take a break from entrepreneurship. I was just like, because at that time I was already on my 3rd business, and I was like, I just want to do this. I just want to have some fun. And
I love it.
Yeah, but I was like, I can't. That's not what I want to do. And so what am I going to do? And I put my sales shoes back on and hit the streets, and dialed for dollars, as they say, and was able to build it back up. And now I'm just started my second company.
You're a little scrapper. Yeah. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So I love the energy that you're putting. I wish those that are listening to this on podcast will go to my YouTube video and watch this video that we're going to produce of this show, because the energy that radiates out of Bella's face is very contagious. And so I can see why she's so successful. And that's another thing that I want to pay attention to and sort of shed light on. And as an image consultant, or an expert in your field when it comes to looking your best. Let's talk about some of that inside work that you've mentioned. So, you can look, and I talk about this a lot because it's a good example. I've been back in my single days. I used to be a serial dater and had a lot of girlfriends for like 2 weeks. And nothing drove me more crazy than being very attracted to a woman and actually getting on a date with her, and then sitting across the table from her, and like I could have had a better conversation with the pen.
Yeah.
Right? And then you find my wife, who's just as beautiful on the inside as she is on the outside, and you have intellectual conversation, and there's a jive, and there's a connection, and there's this energy right on the inside. So you can look the best you can. Mm-hmm. You can have the best suit. You could be sharp as nails. But talk about how important it is to have that inside matching that.
Oh, yeah. So nowadays, too, I would say it's more important than ever for, the inside to match the outside, because, and as a brand person, there's messaging. So not only is it the way that you look, but it's the way that you speak, what comes out of your mouth, and how you treat people, because there's nothing that will ruin your brand quicker than, people talking about, you being an a-hole. Mm-hmm. There's nothing worse than that. And, in this day and age, especially with like the whole Me Too, like everything is shifting. The way that we treat human beings is shifting. And there's nothing that will grow a brand greater than a great CEO or great people that are just amazing to work with. Mm-hmm. Because people will talk about that, and that will spread. And in a digital world where nowadays, we're inundated, we get advertising in our Facebook Messenger now.
It's insane, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So we're inundated with, all these different marketing messages, but there's nothing that will grow a brand greater than, people say, you've got to work with that company because of that person.
Right. Right.
It'll go viral.
It's so important. It's so important. And so to have that energy and to have that enthusiasm, I feel like that sort of energy is very contagious. It's very attractive. I have a sales coach, and we meet every week, and it's great to get outside perspective from your coach, because you get that those are sort of your blind spots that you're not really seeing every day. And so he said, Henry, one of the biggest things that I love about you is your enthusiasm. He said, your enthusiasm just radiates. And it's funny. He's like, I see you on your lives all the time on Facebook. And it's like, you're always sitting down. Like, how have you not worn that chair out? And so he's like, you got to get out there more, maybe change up the scenery, maybe get out and walk around and do a live, or next time you're in the city, just get that energy out there, get that enthusiasm out there, because it's a big part of your brand.
Yeah.
And so being very self-aware, and I've seen you use that word on one of the sites that I was checking out of yours, self-awareness as being, and Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this a lot, but like being self-aware can really catapult your entrepreneurial career, if you want to go there and sort of shed some light on that.
Yes, self-awareness is huge. And I would say self-awareness comes down to like knowing your triggers. I think it's the most important where you can start, because everything starts from the inside. So, when a client says like I remember one of my clients, her whole closet was black and white. She was like, I want to add some color. And it's still by far the worst shopping experience I've ever had with someone. But like everything I brought her in color, she hated. And I was like, and then we got into, what was underneath that? Why did she not like that color? Like what, and colors have triggering memories for a lot of people. And that was really where the Style Within course came from as well, was we do a whole session on just what colors mean. And so I remember like just really being and helping her become aware of like, what did those different colors mean to her? Why was she triggered about them? And so I think that self-awareness first has to come from like, if you ever get upset about something or your feelings are hurt about something, is to ask like, really, what is it about me that those feelings were hurt? What my mom always used to say, I may push your buttons, but I didn't install the buttons.
I love it.
Right?
I love it.
And so it's like ownership of like, that's my trigger. So if someone says something to me, like, I just, so I had a thing with my boyfriend, last night where I put together this birthday party for someone, and he's like, I don't think that's a good restaurant. And I don't think anybody want to go there. And I was like, my feelings are really hurt that like, you're not excited about the place I chose. And he's like, that's not my stuff. I was like, oh, damn it. That's not my stuff. And it's like, and so literally it's like, okay, so what was I having my feelings hurt about? What was that about me? What was that trigger for me? And it's, it usually comes down to like, my not good enough. Like, oh, did I not pick a restaurant that was good enough? Like all of that stuff that's triggered. And it's like, okay.
And then I want to add to that, because this is something that, I have a therapist that I go to regularly, because I think everyone should have one, quite frankly, because they really give you that mindset coaching that you need. And my mindset coach had said to me, because we went through an exercise like that recently, and she said, after you do everything that Bella just said, she said, then ask yourself, is it true?
Yes.
Ask yourself, is it true? Do I really get upset because XYZ? Is that true? And if it's not, then go a little bit deeper and until you get to that bottom line. And then you're like, all right, here's why. I get it. Let's kaput this, because this is all bullshit anyway.
Yep.
Right? I'll tell you a funny story. So if one of my clients is listening to this, he's going to laugh. So I work with a client in Newark, New Jersey, owns a beautiful restaurant, and he reached out to me the day before Valentine's Day. And he was like, dude, I need you to help me with some of the marketing collateral for Valentine's Day. And I was like, bro, it's tomorrow. Like, what are we going to do in less than 24 hours? And he says, well, I got this menu. I need you to button up, blah, 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 blah. So my immediate reaction is, no, I'm not doing it. It's bullshit. I have a whole docket worth of work to do. That's not my problem. And then I said to myself, how long has he been a client to you? 10 years, literally 10 years, like one of my first clients. How long is the work really going to take? Hour, 45 minutes, maybe. I don't know. Hour and a half, tops. So before I responded to him, I became self-aware. And I said all of this to myself, not him.
Yeah, of course.
And I said, I'll be home in 15 minutes. Give me an hour. So I went through this whole crazy
conversation
with yourself by myself. And then I replied back, it'll be done within an hour. And so let me break this open a little bit deeper. So what I realized was, why did I get upset? Why did I get upset? I got upset because I felt like my time wasn't being respected. Right. And where did the anger come from? Well, the anger's there to protect me from being disrespected. Now, is all of this true? Did Marco really mean to disrespect me by coming to me last minute? No. He came to me because he was like, holy shit, we got to get this done. I effed up, or I goofed, or maybe I didn't even goof, but bottom line is we got to get this done. And Henry's my go-to guy. He always makes it happen. I'm reaching out to him because I know he'll get it done. Completely different scenario. And so I share this with you guys because I want you guys to realize that we're all human. We all have emotions. We all have feelings. We all have those things that trigger us. I love that. Push the buttons, but I didn't program them. What was it?
I didn't install them.
Install them. I love it. So understanding this stuff, this is great stuff. I'm so glad that you brought this up, Bella, because it's so important. We all get trapped in our own heads. And we don't realize that we're our own worst enemies sometimes. And if we just think it through, give ourselves the time out in the 5 seconds or 5 minutes and walk us through that, the end result will be better branding.
Yep.
A better image.
Yep.
You will be looked at as somebody who is, like you said before, like somebody who you would love to work with, that has that reputation. I have an uncle who owns a $200 million construction company here in New Jersey. And I know you live in Jersey City, so you see his trucks all day long. You just don't know it yet. But he said to me one day, because I said, Uncle Joe, what's the key to success? And he says, well, you always got to, when you set a goal, you always got to set one a little bit higher. And just, it's a rinse and repeat. But he said, above that, you have to treat the janitor like you treat the CEO. And so he's got laborers on the job that, are from a different country. And then he's got, foremen and VPs in his company that make boku bucks, but I always, when I see him, he's always treating them the same. And that's powerful stuff. And I think that represents a great image that allows people to connect with you. Because if you're not creating that on the inside as well as the outside, and let's tie this all together here, people are going to start asking questions. Right? So I love this conversation. I could talk to you for hours, but I know I have to start to make the corner here. So the next question I have for you is this, because a lot of the listeners and viewers, they always ask me, can you ask your guests, what are they doing in 2018 to nurture their brand, grow their brand? Because I look at branding as a human, as an actual, like an organism.
Yeah.
Right? I look at brand as an actual person, right? Even though it may be a business. And if you're not feeding it the right nutrients, it dies. It's the bottom line, right? So 2018, everything's happening like a mile a minute. And so what are you doing in 2018 to help you grow your practice, to help you nurture your brand so that it's a sustainable and profitable and reputable brand for the future? Yeah.
There's two things. And one of them you actually mentioned to start off with was I'm building more of a presence on LinkedIn. I'm really focused on LinkedIn, this year, because I did transition into primarily working also with speakers. And so it's just, and my target audience I have discovered is really too busy for Facebook. I really don't spend a whole lot of time on Facebook. And so I've definitely, and going back to how I originally became successful, which was networking. And so now I'm just like reaching out, like, and when I've noticed they've looked at my profile, I'll send them a message like, hey, I noticed you look, is there a question or is there a reason that you were looking, or, to actually engage in a relationship. I'll usually ask them like, what are you looking for too? So doing the same kind of networking, and because I like to be like bi-coastal, and so joining a networking group sometimes isn't really feasible because I'm not able to be there regularly. So definitely focusing on LinkedIn. I know you're taking some notes. So I would definitely I'm curious what you're writing, but so I would say that's one is really focusing, and I'm educating myself in the LinkedIn space of, what works, what drives engagement there. So I'd say that's number one. And then number two, have you ever heard of a guy by the name of Joey Coleman?
No.
Okay, so Joey Coleman, I met him at a Maverick event, and he has a program called the First 100 Days. And he goes in and does, he's a big public speaker, and he goes into companies and he teaches this concept of how to like wow your clients in the first 100 days. So from your very first contact, every day, if you go to like joeycoleman.com, you can, download his free, thing that is a template for your first 100 days.
Big shout out to Joey Coleman.
Very big. And he's just a great human. Like, I just love this man. He's super, super funny, and he's a great human being. But yeah, so that's the thing I'm implementing, is because, I've raised my prices. Good. And I wanted to work with a specific market.
Good.
And so with those raised prices, I really wanted to give people a wow experience when they first started to work with me. And I didn't really have any kind of format for that. So that's the thing I'm implementing. Like, I just want to when people, because image is a very touchy subject. It's not, people don't go around and go, hey, call an image consultant, because it's going to be an insult. So how can I create an experience for people where that's something that they want to talk about? Because like, hey, I hired this image consultant. It's been this great experience. Not you need to, talk to this image consultant because you look like crap.
I have a client, and I want to shout her out, Carla Andino. She's one of my favorite clients in the world. She's from Honduras. She is a beautiful individual. We helped her build her brand last year. It's called Top Consulting. She does exactly what you do. And I want her to, if she's listening, Carla, pay attention to what Bella's doing, because she's creating that experience.
Yeah.
That wowed experience. And so that's something that, I want Carla and anybody else in this industry to pay attention to, because branding is that gut feeling that people get when they interact with you. And I could just tell you from the 42 minutes hanging out with Bella, like, I would love to be, part of her community, part of her tribe, because of the energy that she's that she's putting out there. Right. And so that goes a long way. So a couple of things that I want to dissect of what you just said is, one, you said, my audience seems to be a little bit too busy for Facebook. So I want to point out to my audience that is listening and tuning in, that where your ideal clients are hanging out.
Yeah. And
one of the things that I realized was, I'm an expensive guy. Like, my business is expensive. I'm expensive. Like, everything about this brand is very premium. And what I realized was the average revenue of Facebook users is like 37,000 or something like that. And the average revenue of a LinkedIn user is like 117,000. So looking at that and saying, wow, here's where people can afford me, and here's where people can't afford me. Now, don't get me wrong. I've gotten a lot of business from Facebook, but the majority is over here in LinkedIn. So knowing where your audience is hanging out is so, so important. The other thing that you said that I rave about and preach about is specialization. And you said you want to work with speakers, right? And that is tremendous. The minute I turned the corner and said, I'm no longer a graphic designer, I am now a cutting edge brand consultant that works with entrepreneurs that want to connect with their audience in a genuine and relatable way, right? I get really, really focused, and I'm not worrying about anything else. Anything else. Not shiny object over here, not shiny object over there. It's, this is who I want to work with. Here's why you have to pay me $100 to speak to me for a half an hour as an introductory call. I don't even know if I want to work with you yet.
Yeah.
Why? It's because I'm looking for that individual that values that level of quality and service. And so I love that you niched down into the speaking, because there's a gazillion speakers, and that all want to get in front of an audience and look their best. So,
and they're all super fun to work with. That's why I did channel. They're so fun to work with.
And you know what? I happen to listen, I've worked with a couple big businesses before, and I was talking to my mentor the other day, and he was like, well, Henry, that's where you're going to get the $500,000 jobs. But you're going to be working with a board. You're going to be working with departments. And I said, Chris, I don't know if that's where I want to go. Yeah. Like, I don't mind getting the $40,000 gigs, because like I'm working with one person or like two people. It's really like intimate, and like we're not getting approvals and sign-offs. Like I'm working with the boss. You know what I mean? Like that's my kind of gig. You know what I mean? So I work with a lot of personal brands. But there's some fitness brands out there that I work with. I don't know why the fitness industry is so attracted to me, but I love them as well. But I work with a lot of folks in the fitness industry that have these supplement companies and these businesses. And I said, it all starts with you, because in the fitness industry, there's got to be a face. There's got to be some sort of ambassador there with the product or service. So, I love that you are doing all the right things inside of your brand. And I have no doubt in my mind that this year is going to be awesome for you. Now, listen, before we go, if there's one piece of advice you can give the listeners today, we covered a lot. I was telling my guests yesterday, because that was another awesome episode. I said, all right, so we're going to sell this for 5 G's, and I'm going to split the profits with you because it's so good. The content is so good. Same with this one. I mean, we can easily sell this, but we're not. What piece of advice would you give our audience that is trying to build their brand, build their image, just that are trying to help their target audience?
Does it have to be just one? Can it be like one and kind of?
Yeah, we got 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. So I would say the very first thing is, if you're just starting, like obviously the very first thing is image matters. Like it matters. And it's probably, when it comes to especially your personal image, it tends to be one of the last investments people want to make. And you want it to be the first investment you make, especially if you're doing, you work in the branding area. So if you're doing a website and you're going to do a photo shoot and all of that, you want to hire an image consultant to help you with the clothing for that photo shoot. So and that's where I work with speakers now, is like creating a whole style brand for the stage, for their website, for all of these different things, because you want it to be a cohesive look. Dan Hardy always wears a shiny blue suit. Everything, it's on his website, it's on the stage, it's like, that's his brand, his look. And so to make that that investment a priority, and tied to that is a nice look doesn't have to mean high dollar. You and I like the nice shoes. But when you're first starting out, you're not going to go spend $1,500 on a pair of shoes. So I've literally gotten people entire wardrobes for $300.
That's awesome.
And that was way back when I first starting out, and before I did any of my programs. But I remember we went to JCPenney's, and this is the thing is and I'll say too, is just take one step up from where you're at. So, I remember she was like a Walmart shopper. And so we went from Walmart to JCPenney's. To her, JCPenney's was like freaking Nordstrom's.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you don't have to go from Walmart to Nordstrom's. You can go from Walmart to JCPenney's and still get that feeling, because it's that confidence that exudes from you.
Smart. Smart
and
move.
then Yeah. And then like I have one guy who is a Nordstrom shopper. And so we went from Nordstrom's to made to fit, made to measure. And so like that was his jump. And now he's like got a whole new, step in his.
So take incremental jumps. Don't take lunges.
Yes.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
And set a budget. When you're setting your marketing budget, is include a new outfit, and especially if you're any kind of speaker, you're doing videos or anything like that. That new shirt it'll make you. It's that, and I always say it's like that confidence that exudes from you when you know that you look good, and that's what people will be attracted to. If you're on any kind of camera, any kind of media, and there's any thought in your head of like, oh, I'm not fit enough, or, your shirt's too big, or, whatever, is like, there's that taking up energy. There's a concern, and there's something that like you're not comfortable with. And so you're not going to attract as many prospects as you could if you really actually felt good.
There you go. So when you build your image to a strong, healthy image, it builds confidence. Confidence builds brand. Brands builds business. Business builds profits. I mean, that's me just freestyling, but that's
what you said.
Yeah, that's the name of the game, and that's why image and brand are so directly correlated with your bottom line.
Yeah,
and that's one of the things that I really began speaking much about after one of my clients recently. She's on my email list, and she said, "Listen, I love what you're doing. I open every email you send." And one of the things that I don't see you talking about is how branding directly correlates with profit, with revenue. And I said, this is a great piece of insight that I needed, because it does. I mean, bottom line, because yes, people look at branding as a luxury. And that's what she said to me.
Yeah.
People look at their image as, oh, when I make it, I can do all that stuff. Yeah. But it's kind of got to start before that. You know what I mean? And having Verita in our lives is Verita in our lives to help us sort of frame that out, no matter what level of success you're at, is just, the world needs more Bellas.
I don't know if the world can handle that. This red hair is natural, so I don't know if the world can handle any more redheads.
I love it. I love it. We have a little guest here too. I don't know if you can see him. Hold on. Say hi, Canella. Come on. Sure.
I got a little one too.
Do you?
I don't know where she went.
Oh, there he is. There he is.
What is he?
So he's a pit bull boxer.
Oh.
And we rescued him about 5 years ago. You're gonna be 10 years old. So he comes into my office every time I'm on camera.
So he likes the camera too.
Yeah, he knows that's the time to come in. Luckily, he didn't do any barking this time, but it's so funny.
Neither did Dior, and we're out at the beach right now, and people are walking by with their dogs all the time. And but I think my boyfriend took her in the back room for me.
It's so funny. But yeah, so big dog lover. But anyway, we digress. We got to get back on track, right? Bella, thank you so much for spending an hour with us today. You dropped some bombs on us and very, very valuable information. We definitely got to stay in touch. Anything that I could do to help, send people your way, vice versa. Anything, because I really like what you stand for. I really like what you're doing. You're like me. You want to help other people.
Definitely.
And that is why I was attracted to you in the first place. And I said, I got to get her on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Guys, real quick, some housekeeping stuff. If you haven't joined the Brand Doctors Hangout Facebook group yet, go over there right now on Facebook, type in the search query Brand Doctors Hangout. Come join us. There's me and about 400 other entrepreneurs in there that are all helping each other build each other's brand up. If you haven't subscribed to this podcast yet, please do so. I thank you in advance. And if you haven't shared it with a friend or a colleague, I invite you to do that. And I thank you in advance as well for that. Hope you got some value out of today's call, today's episode, and keep rocking. And I'll catch you on the next episode. Talk soon.
You've been listening to the Brand Doctor Podcast with Henry Kaminski Jr. To get your appointment with the doctor, visit Brand Audit at www.uniquedesigns.net.